under the Foundation School Program. Chair offers a committee substitute, and Chairman Bonin will explain the committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you House Bill 124. House Bill 124 seeks to increase the school safety allotment under the Foundation School Program. The bill increases the daily allotment from $10 to $14 for each student in average daily attendance. The bill also increases the additional per campus allotment from $15,000 to $37,000. The committee substitute adds language to ensure that the expenditures are reported to the TEA. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, members, any questions for Chairman Bonin? All right, the chair recognizes Representative Bryant for a question.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know anybody who lives on $37,000 a year who has a family. And we've asked them to hire police officers, presumably, who are normal, regular people and likely going to have a spouse and kids. How did you come up with the figure $37,000?
Yeah, so obviously that's more than doubling what is currently the funding per campus. It also increases the total funding for this specific strategy in the Foundation School Program to roughly $500 million for the biennium. When we first stood up the school safety allotment, which was in 2019, I believe is when that passed, it was about $100 million. And so this is a supplement to our overall funding for the Foundation School Program, and with respect specifically to having an armed adult on each campus, the law doesn't require that be a licensed peace officer. And there is an option for the districts to go through a different program, whether it's a guardian or marshal program, that would allow them to fulfill that requirement without hiring a full-time officer to be on the campus.
So would this be a part-time salary?
So this money is not earmarked for any particular expenditure. In other words, this could be salary, but it's not designated that this $37 has to go to pay someone to fulfill that particular requirement on the campus. It could be used for other elements of school safety, which is part of the reason why we added the language in the substitute to say we'd like to know how these monies are actually being utilized.
Well, since they've told us that it's about $85,000 to hire somebody full-time for a year to be a safety officer in a school, why aren't we not just going ahead and allocating enough money for them to do that?
So this is not the sum total of funding for our public schools, number one. Number two, they're not required to hire a licensed peace officer to be on every campus.
Wouldn't we
So you're
want
conflating the requirement. You could actually have somebody who actually is already working and employed on the campus who meets that criteria, and that problem is solved, and you're not spending $85,000 hiring someone.
So you're testifying that this is not the total amount of money that we are spending on public education. So in HB1 and the substitute that you're working on, presumably, how much money is going to be spent on public education in Texas?
What I can tell you is the contingency rider for the legislation that Chair Buckley is working on would add an additional, well, actually it's multiple pieces of legislation, not a single piece of legislation, would add another $8 billion on top of the current level of funding. And of course, that is going to vary depending on a number of variables, which would include enrollment and attendance, and then also the complexity of the students. Part of what we're seeing is that the enrollments are not increasing the way they used to. Our birth rate is not what it once was. However, interestingly, the complexity of the students and then the dollars that are produced in the formula is increasing. And so the interplay of all that means that the funding is not, as best I can tell, going backwards. It's still increasing, but it is changing in terms of the nature. We have a much higher acuity student population than what we would have had years ago. And where we would have budgeted in the past for maybe 60 to 80,000 new kids in public schools in the state of Texas, that number has fallen pretty dramatically. It's probably, this is again just an estimate, I'm going to say roughly closer to 15,000. If that just gives you an idea of the changes that we're seeing. And people may try to ascribe that to any number of factors, but I think that principally driving that is that we're just, since the Great Recession of 08, 09, we've seen that people are having fewer children.
So are we limited in this committee to $8.8 billion?
So that's a great question. People always want to ask me about their contingency riders, and it could be for any number of pieces of legislation. And my best advice is to pass your bill. And what's going to happen is, as any given piece of legislation goes through the process, it will, in most instances, end differently than it began. And not only this committee, but the full House and the Senate will have an opportunity to have an impact on the final version of the bill, and then we'll have an analysis of what that cost looks like. And then typically what happens is, as we're putting not simply the funding for a given piece of legislation, but for the whole budget together, we're tracking every piece of legislation that has a cost to the state. And at the end of session, we have to put the final touches on the budget, and that includes accounting for whatever work product the legislature has produced and the cost that it's going to have. So I would not say that is, it's not a minimum nor is it a maximum. I think it's going to be up to the will of the legislature as to, what these different pieces of legislation ultimately look like. And again, that additional $8 billion is not specifically for one piece of legislation. It contemplates multiple bills that are currently moving in the process that could pass. But we are completely able as a body to debate and discuss and vote on these bills, and you're not constricted based on a contingency rider.
So HB 500 is a supplemental appropriations bill.
Hold, Mr. Bryant, can we say on this bill? I mean, we're proud to have the Chairman of Appropriations here, but let's stay on House Bill 124 concerning school safety.
I'll comply with the Chairman's request, of course. I would just point out the questions I'm asking bear directly on House Bill 2, and this is the only time we're going to get to ask them. We've not had any consultation with regard to Chairman Buckley with regard to the substitute for the school finance bill. We don't have any information. This is the one time we're going to get to ask the Chairman of the Appropriations Committee about this topic. Well, I
the committee substitute will be laid out before this committee when that time is right. We've been working on that, and you will have more information before that happens. So let's keep it all directed towards House Bill 124.
Well, we'd like to have more information and more input, not just information. So I'm trying to get a little information here so we can fashion the kind of input we want to have. But I will comply with the Chairman's request. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Frank for a question.
Yeah, thank you. And Chairman, I just want to say I've got 44 different school districts, and I really appreciate the flexibility in the bill because it goes straight to the schools regardless of how they spend it. It's, Representative Bryant was talking about the full cost of full-time peace officers, but what is the cost of a guardian?
It's dramatically less.
Yeah, it's like 20. I think it's 2,500 or 4. It's a stipend because they're already there. They go through the training program, and a lot of the school districts that I have do that. Then I've got other school districts that literally every single campus has a full-time, kind of what he was talking about, a more expensive. And certainly this doesn't cover the cost of that, the one that does it full-time, but it more than covers it. But we're not rewarding those who are spending more money. We're just saying, hey, you do it how it fits. And so I appreciate that very much. I think that is absolutely the right way to do it. I will say this, the school district that has officers at every campus had it before we had one dime of safety allotment. So all of the money going has been added, which is great, but we have been added since then. They were already paying for it, and now we're paying more, which again is a great thing. But sometimes when we look at basic allotments or safety allotments, we are completely undercounting as we play kind of games, but we undercount how much money has been put in. So I appreciate the bill and appreciate the flexibility to the schools. I think it encourages the right behaviors.
All right, Chair recognizes Representative Hinojosa for a question.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Bonin, I appreciate you bringing this bill and the increased money. I, like my colleague, Representative Bright, would like to see more money still in this bill. And so I'm wondering to ask what he was asking, just a different way to get an understanding of, is there more money out there to add to this bill? What is the, and I've never been on appropriations, so I don't know how this works. I think you all passed the individual articles or approved those articles yesterday. What is the surplus remaining after approving those the amounts in all those articles?
Yeah.
Again, Representative, this is,
I'm
there's a bill before us.
And that's about this bill. I want to
Yeah.
know if there's money in the surplus that we might try to.
I mean, respectfully,
Get
I think the
back in
point
here.
is that as much as I enjoy talking about the budget and the Supplemental Appropriations Act, those are not the bills that are in front of us right now.
Right, but the bill that's before us right now, I think the amount's too low, because I'll say for my own district, though I do appreciate the extra money, but I'm hearing from my own trustees that, and it's not just the mandate for an armed person on the guard. There's multiple mandates that came down from both our legislation and TEA that they have to comply with, and it's very expensive. So I'm wondering if there's more money that we might be able to work with you to get into school safety, into this bill.
I think that will be up to the committee and to the members of the House and Senate to decide.
We just don't know if there's more money. So I'm wondering if there's more, after the articles you've approved, is there more money in the surplus that we might be able to put into this bill?
Well, at the end of the day, we do have to make decisions, not only about overall, but even within school finance, because the way the money goes into the formula or into the various allotments is going to impact different districts in a different way. And so what might be more advantageous to one, it sounds very appealing because it sounds like more, but it might have been better for them to have that money go into a different strategy that would have actually been more productive for that district. So it's a little more complex than just this binary, more is always better for a given strategy. I think, and I think this committee understands that probably better than, than most.
I'll say for me, more would be better for this strategy. And so if you know what is available in the surplus, it would be helpful for me to understand.
All right.
Oh.
All right, thank you. Okay, Representative Schoolcraft, please, you're recognized for a question.
Mr. Chairman Bonin, thank you. I want to make sure I'm reading the bill correctly. One, you're adding $4 to the allotment, going from 10 to 14. But also, I don't know if anybody noticed, this section of the code also says plus $1 per student for every $50 of the basic allotment above 6,160. So as we raise the basic allotment, that will be increasing this cost of this allotment as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And I think if you look at the fiscal note on this, you'll also see that it's fairly dynamic, so that what I described to you as being the cost for the biennium, when you look at the out years, it grows significantly. So that's a fair point.
Okay, so I actually did quick numbers. If we increase the basic allotment $1,000, it would add, I think, about $100 million to this allotment. That would be a pretty nice bump, too.
Well, again, I think the point is that this is complex.
Sure.
And the point you're making, which is excellent, is that these variables interact with one another. It is not strictly siloed. And then again, until you guys see the runs, if you will, for some of this, it's hard to know precisely how your districts that you represent are going to be impacted.
Thank you.
Members, any more questions for Chairman Bonin? All right, we'll move to witness to testimony now and reserve the right to close. Chair calls Steve Swanson, Amanda Afifi, and Russ Johnson. Steve Swanson, Amanda Afifi,